My son sent me to a nursing home to sell my house. I quietly signed all the papers. He celebrated with his wife all week, but when they came to the notary for the keys— Good day, dear listeners. It's Larissa again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I never thought my own son would be the one to break my heart. For 37 years, I had lived in the small two-story house on Maple Street that my late husband George and I had bought when we were newlyweds. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen where I'd baked birthday cakes, the living room where we'd celebrated Christmases, the garden where George had planted roses before he passed 5 years ago. I was 72, healthy enough to manage on my own, with my weekly bridge club, my volunteer work at the library, and my beloved vegetable garden that still produced tomatoes every summer. My son Michael had always been attentive, or so I thought. He called every Sunday, visited twice a month with his wife Jennifer. They seemed concerned about me living alone, but I'd assured them countless times I was perfectly fine. I had my routines, my independence, my dignity. Then the visits became more frequent. 3 times a week, 4 times a week. Michael would walk through the house, his eyes scanning everything with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Mom, this carpet is worn," he'd say. Or, "These stairs are dangerous for someone your age." Jennifer would nod vigorously, her painted lips pressed into a thin line of false concern. "We're just worried about you, Eleanor," she'd coo, but her eyes never matched her smile. How blind had I been? How long had they been planning this? It started with small suggestions. "Maybe you should think about downsizing, Mom." Then it escalated. "We found a wonderful assisted living facility, just for a visit to see what you think." I refused, of course. I wasn't ready to leave my home, my life, my memories. I was managing just fine, thank you very much. But Michael became insistent. The visits turned tense. His voice, once warm, now carried an edge of impatience. "You're being stubborn," he'd snap. "What if you fall? What if something happens and no one's here?" Jennifer would place her hand on his arm, playing the peacemaker, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. They weren't worried about my safety. They wanted something else. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning in late September. Michael arrived unannounced with Jennifer and a man in a gray suit who introduced himself as Mr. Peterson, an elder care consultant. They sat me down at my own kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed Michael countless meals, where I'd helped him with homework, where we'd laughed and cried together as a family. "Mom, we need to talk seriously about your future," Michael began, and I noticed he wouldn't meet my eyes. "We've found a place for you. Sunnyvale Retirement Community. It's beautiful, top-rated, and they have immediate availability." "I don't want to go," I said firmly. "You don't have a choice." Jennifer's voice was sharp, the mask slipping for just a moment. Michael shot her a warning look, then softened his tone. "What Jennifer means is that we've already made the arrangements. We'll sell the house, and the money will cover your care indefinitely. You'll be safe, Mom. Isn't that what matters?" The papers appeared before I could process what was happening. Power of attorney, real estate documents, care facility agreements. Mr. Peterson droned on about clauses and signatures while Michael kept saying, "It's for the best, Mom. Trust me." And God help me. Some part of me still wanted to trust him. This was my son, my only child. So when he pressed the pen into my hand, I took it. When he pointed to the signature lines, I signed. One after another, I watched my hand form the letters of my name, Eleanor Mitchell, giving away everything George and I had built together. Michael's face brightened immediately. He actually smiled, a real smile, and hugged Jennifer. "Thank you, Mom," he said, kissing my forehead like I was a child who'd finally behaved. You won't regret this." But as they left, laughing and chatting about their plans for my house, I sat alone at that kitchen table and felt the first cold finger of dread trace down my spine. In their celebration, they'd left one document behind, a real estate broker's estimate of my home's value, $750,000. What had I just done? The next 3 days passed in a blur of packing boxes and forced smiles. Michael and Jennifer came every morning, efficiently sorting through my life like I was already gone. "You won't need this at Sunnyvale," Jennifer would say, tossing my grandmother's china into a box marked estate sale. I watched in numb silence as my home was systematically dismantled. But at night, alone in my bedroom, fear gnawed at me with sharp teeth. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying that Tuesday morning over and over. What exactly had I signed? I hadn't read the documents carefully. Michael had rushed me. Mr. Peterson had used legal jargon I couldn't follow. And I'd been so overwhelmed, so confused. $750,000. That number haunted me. On Thursday night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea that had long gone cold, and I finally let myself feel the full weight of what was happening. My son was stealing from me, not just my house, but my independence, my dignity, my right to choose my own path, and I had helped him do it by signing those papers. Anger began to burn through the fear. This was my house, my life. George and I had worked ourselves to the bone to pay off the mortgage. We'd sacrificed vacations, new cars, luxuries so we could give Michael a good life, send him to college. And this was how he repaid me? I had to think clearly. What were my options? I was alone, elderly, and I'd already signed documents I didn't fully understand. Could I even fight this? Michael had always been the smart one, the successful one. He was a financial advisor with connections, money, a silver tongue. What was I? Just an old woman who'd spent her life taking care of others. No, that wasn't all I was. I was Eleanor Mitchell. I'd survived the death of my parents in a car accident when I was 23. I'd raised a child while working full-time as a nurse. I'd nursed my husband through his final illness without breaking down once in front of him. I was stronger than Michael thought. Stronger than I'd been letting myself believe. I needed information first. What had I actually signed? Friday morning, after Michael and Jennifer left with another load of my belongings, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called a taxi and went to the library. My friend Margaret worked there, and more importantly, they had computers and a young librarian named Tim who'd helped me learn to use email last year. "Mrs. Mitchell," Margaret greeted me with surprise. "I thought you'd moved already." "Not yet," I said carefully. "Margaret, I need help. Legal help, but I don't know where to start." We sat in a quiet corner and I told her everything. Her face grew increasingly troubled. "Eleanor, this doesn't sound right. If you signed under pressure, if you didn't understand what you were signing, can I undo it?" "I don't know, but I know who might." She wrote down a name and number. Linda Chen. She's a family lawyer. Her mother is in my bridge club. She does pro bono work for seniors. Call her. My hands shook as I dialed the number on Margaret's cell phone. A professional voice answered, and I explained my situation in a whisper, terrified Michael might somehow hear me, even though he was miles away. Linda Chen listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mrs. Mitchell, I need you to do something important. Do you have copies of what you signed?" "No, they took everything." Then we need to get copies. Do you remember the names on the documents? The company names? I closed my eyes, forcing myself to remember. Sunnyvale Retirement Community and Harper Real Estate Group. Mr. Peterson gave Michael his card. It might still be in the trash. Good. Very good. Mrs. Mitchell, don't sign anything else. Don't agree to anything else. And if possible, when do they plan to move you? Monday. They're moving me to Sunnyvale on Monday. The real estate listing goes live on Tuesday. That gives us 3 days. Here's what I need you to do. As Linda Chen outlined her plan, I felt something I hadn't felt since George died. I felt like someone was on my side, like I wasn't alone in this fight. Michael thought I was a helpless old woman who would go quietly. He thought he'd won. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Saturday morning, I woke with purpose for the first time in days. Linda Chen had been clear. I needed copies of every document I'd signed, and I needed to file a formal complaint with the county clerk's office before the sale went through. But how could I get those papers when Michael had taken everything? The answer came from an unexpected source. Mr. Peterson's business card, crumpled but readable, was still in my kitchen trash exactly where I'd hoped. Harper Real Estate Group. I called the number, my heart pounding. Harper Real Estate, this is Denise speaking. Hello, this is Eleanor Mitchell. I recently signed some documents with Mr. Peterson regarding my property at 247 Maple Street. I lost my copies in the confusion of packing. Could I possibly get duplicates? I kept my voice sweet, confused, the stereotype of a forgetful old woman. Oh, of course, Mrs. Mitchell. Let me look that up. Yes, here it is. I can email them to you. Or if you'd like to come by the office. I'll come by, I said quickly. What time do you close today? At 2 o'clock, I was in another taxi, heading to Harper Real Estate. Margaret had agreed to meet me there. I needed a witness, Linda had said. Someone who could confirm I was of sound mind and acting independently. The receptionist, Denise, was a cheerful woman in her 30s who handed me a folder without suspicion. Here you are, Mrs. Mitchell. Everything Mr. Peterson processed for your property. If you need anything else. Thank you, dear. This is perfect. In Margaret's car, we read through the documents, and with each page, my blood ran colder. There it was in black and white. I'd signed a general power of attorney giving Michael complete control over all my financial and legal affairs. I'd signed a deed transfer putting my house directly in his name to facilitate the sale and care arrangements. I'd even signed away my right to contest the sale. Eleanor, Margaret whispered, her face pale. He can do anything. Access your bank accounts, your pension, everything. My bank accounts. I hadn't even thought about those. Drive me to First National Bank, right now. The bank manager, Mr. Robertson, was someone I'd known for 20 years. He looked uncomfortable when I asked about my accounts. Mrs. Mitchell, your son came in. Wednesday morning, he had power of attorney documents. He moved most of your funds into a joint account with his name on it. How much? $43,000. He left about $2,000 in your checking account for immediate expenses. The room spun. $43,000. My entire life savings, everything George and I had saved, gone. Moved into an account Michael controlled. Can I get it back? My voice sounded strange, distant. If you can prove the power of attorney was obtained improperly, but that would require legal action. I left the bank with Margaret supporting my arm. I must have looked as shattered as I felt. But beneath the shock, beneath the betrayal, anger was building into something harder, colder, something like steel. That evening, Michael and Jennifer came for their usual inspection. But this time, I watched them differently. I saw how Jennifer's eyes lingered on my antique lamp, how Michael measured the walls like he was already planning renovations. They were spending my money in their heads. "How are you feeling about Monday, Mom?" Michael asked, his tone carefully casual. "All packed and ready?" "Almost," I said softly. "It's just so much to process." Jennifer laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Well, you won't have to worry about processing anything anymore. That's the beauty of Sunnyvale. They take care of everything for you." That's when I noticed Michael looking at me strangely. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Mom, did you go out today? Did you—" My heart skipped. "Just to the library with Margaret, to say goodbye." He didn't believe me. I could see it in his face. "You should be resting, not gallivanting around town. You're not as young as you used to be." "Of course," I murmured. "You're right." But Jennifer was watching me too now, her expression calculating. "Did you need anything from the library? We could have gotten it for you." "Just returning some books." The silence that followed was heavy with suspicion. Michael exchanged a glance with Jennifer, some wordless communication passing between them. They knew something was off. They just didn't know what. After they left, I sat in my darkening living room, the documents from Harper Real Estate spread across my lap. On Monday, I was supposed to be moved to Sunnyvale. On Tuesday, my house would be listed for sale. By next Friday, Michael and Jennifer would be celebrating their $750,000 windfall, free and clear. Unless I stopped them. I picked up my phone and called Linda Chen. "I have the documents," I said, "and it's worse than I thought." "How much worse?" "He's already taken my life savings. $43,000. Linda Chen's voice went hard. "Then we file Monday morning, first thing, before they can move you." "Mrs. Mitchell, are you sure you're ready for this? Once we start, your son will know. There will be no going back." I looked around my living room, the home I'd loved for 37 years, the place where I'd raised my son, where I'd buried my husband's ashes in the garden he'd loved, where Michael was trying to erase me. "I'm ready," I said. "What do I need to do?" Monday morning came too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Linda Chen had arranged to meet me at the county courthouse at 8 o'clock, before Michael was scheduled to pick me up at 10 to take me to Sunnyvale. I'd barely slept, rehearsing what I would say, what I would do if Michael arrived early. Margaret drove me to the courthouse. My hands trembled as I carried the folder of documents up the stone steps. Inside, Linda Chen waited, a small, sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who radiated competence. She'd brought a paralegal and a notary. "Mrs. Mitchell, we're filing 3 things today," she explained calmly. "First, a petition to revoke the power of attorney on the grounds that it was obtained through undue influence and without proper legal counsel. Second, a restraining order preventing any sale or transfer of your property until the court reviews the case. Third, a freeze on the joint account your son created." "Can we really do all that?" "We can file it. Whether it's granted is up to the judge, but given your age and the speed with which these transactions occurred—" She gave me a meaningful look. "You have a strong case." We spent 2 hours filing paperwork, answering questions, swearing statements. The clerk was sympathetic. Apparently, she'd seen cases like mine before. "Too many children see their parents as ATM machines," she muttered, while stamping documents. By 10:30, it was done. The restraining order was temporary, but immediate. The account was frozen. Michael couldn't touch my money or my house until a hearing scheduled for the following Monday, 7 days away. "Now comes the hard part," Linda said. "He's going to find out very soon. When he does, he'll likely confront you. Don't engage alone. Is there somewhere safe you can stay?" Margaret's offered her guest room. Good. Use it. And Mrs. Mitchell? Linda's voice softened. What you did today took courage. Your son is going to be very angry. Remember, you have every legal right to protect your property and your independence. I arrived home at 11 to find Michael's car already in my driveway. My stomach dropped. He was standing on my porch, his face dark with fury. Jennifer beside him with her arms crossed. "Where the hell have you been?" Michael demanded as I approached. "You were supposed to be packed and ready." "I had errands." "Errands?" "We had an appointment at Sunnyvale, Mom. They were expecting us at 10. Do you have any idea how embarrassing—" He stopped mid-sentence, his eyes widening. "Wait. What were you doing at the courthouse?" My blood turned to ice. How did he know? Jennifer held up her phone. "Paul Harper called. Apparently, there's a restraining order preventing the sale of your house. Something about undue influence?" Her voice dripped with poison. "What did you do, Eleanor?" I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of strength I had left. "I protected what's mine." Michael's face went red. "Protected? Protected? From what? From your own son trying to help you? This is insane. You stole my money." The words came out steady, cold. "You took $43,000 from my account without asking. You were going to sell my house and keep the money. That money was for your care. Then why is it in an account with your name on it? Why not leave it in mine?" Jennifer stepped forward, her pretty face twisted with rage. "You ungrateful old woman. We've spent weeks arranging everything for you, sacrificing our time, and this is how you repay us? By accusing us of theft?" "I'm not accusing, I'm stating facts." Michael grabbed my arm, not hard enough to bruise, but firmly enough to frighten me. "Mom, listen to me very carefully. You're going to call your lawyer right now and tell her this was all a mistake. You're confused. You're not thinking clearly. We'll forget this happened and let go of me." My voice was quiet but sharp as glass. "Let go of me, or I'll call the police." He released me immediately, shock replacing anger on his face. "You'd call the police on your own son? If my own son is threatening me?" "Yes." For a long moment, we stood there in a tableau of broken family, of shattered trust. I could see Michael's mind working, calculating, trying to find an angle. Jennifer whispered something in his ear. "Fine," Michael said finally, his voice cold and controlled. "Fine. You want to play it this way? You're on your own, Mom. Don't come crying to us when you fall down those stairs, when you can't manage anymore. You're 72 years old. You think you can fight this? You think you can win? We'll see." They left. Michael's car screeching out of the driveway with enough force to leave rubber marks on the street. I stood there, shaking, adrenaline making me dizzy. I'd done it. I'd stood up to him, and I was terrified. I packed a bag and called Margaret. For the next 3 days, I stayed at her house, jumping at every phone call, every knock at the door. Linda Chen assured me the restraining order was holding. Michael had tried to contest it, but failed. The hearing was set. All I had to do was survive until then. On Thursday evening, sitting in Margaret's cozy living room with tea and her tabby cat purring on my lap, I finally felt my shoulders relax slightly. The first battle was won. Michael couldn't sell my house. He couldn't access my money. I had a week to prepare my case. But I knew him. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Friday morning, I woke to 17 missed calls from Michael. No voicemails, just call after call starting at 6 a.m. Margaret looked at my phone with concern. "Should you block him?" "Not yet. Linda said to document everything. The calls stopped around noon. I allowed myself to relax, to help Margaret with lunch, to feel almost normal for a few hours. That's when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Michael standing alone on Margaret's porch. No Jennifer. He was holding flowers, my favorite, pink roses, and his expression was contrite, almost boyish, the face he'd worn as a child when he'd broken something and needed forgiveness. Margaret squeezed my hand. "I'm right here if you need me." I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Michael." "Mom." His voice cracked beautifully, perfectly. "Mom, please. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" "We can talk here." He glanced at Margaret's watchful presence and seemed to accept the terms. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days about what happened, about what I did, and you're right. I was wrong." I waited, said nothing. "I got caught up in worrying about you, and I let Jennifer convince me that moving quickly was the right thing. But I should have listened to you. I should have respected your wishes." He held out the roses, his eyes pleading. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so, so sorry. Can we start over? Can we forget all this legal stuff and just talk? Like family?" It was a good performance. If I hadn't seen the documents, hadn't watched him steal my money, I might have believed him. The Michael I'd raised, the boy I'd loved, was good at apologies. He'd always known exactly what to say to make me forgive him. "Did Jennifer send you?" I asked calmly. His mask slipped for just a second, a flash of irritation. "No. I came on my own because I love you. Because you're my mother and I hate that we're fighting." "We're not fighting, Michael. I'm protecting myself from theft." "It wasn't theft. Mom, please, just drop the restraining order. We'll sit down with lawyers, your lawyer, my lawyer, and work everything out properly. We'll make sure you're comfortable, that you have control over your money. I'll even sign something saying the house stays in your name until you're ready to make other arrangements. And if I'm never ready?" His jaw tightened. "Then we'll deal with that when it comes. But this way, with courts and judges, it's going to cost you thousands in legal fees. It's going to drag on for months. Is that really what you want? To spend your savings fighting your own son?" There it was, the threat wrapped in concern, legal fees, long battles, draining my resources until I had nothing left to fight with. "Linda Chen is working pro bono," I said quietly. "And even if she wasn't, I'd rather spend every penny I have fighting for my rights than let you steal them." Michael's face went cold. The boyish contrition vanished completely, replaced by something calculating and mean. "You're making a mistake, Mom. A big mistake. You think your little lawyer can stand up against my resources? I know people. I have connections. I will bury you in paperwork and legal motions until you're too tired to fight anymore. Then I guess we'll see who gets tired first." He stared at me for a long moment, then dropped the roses on Margaret's porch. "Fine. Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when you end up in some state-run facility because you can't afford anywhere decent. Don't call me when you're sick and alone. You made your choice." He walked away, and this time I felt no fear, only a cold, clear certainty. This was who he really was. This was who he'd always been, and I'd been too blind to see it. After he left, Margaret made us strong coffee and called 3 other women from our bridge club. "Eleanor needs us," she said simply. Within an hour, my living room, Margaret's living room, was filled with friends. Rose, who'd lost her husband last year. Patricia, whose daughter had tried something similar with her lake house. Nancy, who worked part-time at a law office and knew exactly how these cases worked. They rallied around me with fierce, protective love. They shared their stories, their advice, their anger on my behalf. Patricia held my hand and said, "You're doing the right thing. My daughter didn't speak to me for 2 years after I fought her. But my house is still mine. My life is still mine. That's what matters. Rose brought me documents she'd saved from her own legal battle with her stepchildren. Nancy made notes about what to expect at the hearing, what questions the judge might ask. Margaret just kept the coffee coming and muttered creative insults about Michael that made us all laugh despite everything. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel alone. I felt supported, strong, ready. That evening, Linda Chen called to confirm our preparation session for Sunday. "How are you holding up, Mrs. Mitchell?" "Better than I expected," I said, looking around at my friends. "Much better." "Good, because I've heard from their lawyer. They're not backing down. They're planning to argue that you're mentally incompetent to handle your own affairs." My stomach dropped. "What?" "It's a standard tactic. Don't worry, we'll be ready for it." "But Eleanor, I need to ask, are you absolutely certain you want to continue? It's going to get uglier before it gets better." I thought about Michael's cold eyes on Margaret's porch, Jennifer's venom, the $43,000 they'd already taken, the house they'd tried to steal, the life they'd tried to erase. "I'm certain," I said. "Let's finish this." Sunday afternoon, the day before the hearing, I was at home. My real home on Maple Street. Linda Chen had advised me to spend the night there, to show the judge I was competent and independent. Margaret had agreed to stay with me, refusing to let me be alone. We were reviewing my testimony when the doorbell rang. Margaret looked through the window and her face went pale. "Eleanor, it's both of them, Michael and Jennifer." My heart hammered, but I forced myself to breathe slowly. "Let them in. Are you sure?" "We're not hiding, not anymore." Margaret opened the door. Michael and Jennifer stood there, and this time they looked different, softer. Jennifer was even crying, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "Mom," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. "Please, just 5 minutes. That's all we're asking." Against my better judgment, I nodded. They came into my living room, the room they'd been planning to sell, and sat on my couch like guests instead of family. Jennifer clutched a tissue, dabbing at her eyes. "We couldn't sleep last night," Michael began. "Tomorrow's the hearing, and the thought of standing in front of a judge, fighting against my own mother." He shook his head. "It's killing me, Mom. It's killing us both." Jennifer nodded vigorously. "Eleanor, I know we've made mistakes. I know I've been difficult. But I want you to understand where we were coming from." She leaned forward, her voice earnest. "My mother died in a nursing home. She fell, and no one found her for hours. The guilt I carry from that. I just didn't want the same thing to happen to you. I pushed Michael to act quickly because I was scared for you. It was convincing. I'd give her that." The tears looked real. The guilt in her voice sounded genuine. If I hadn't seen her celebration when I'd signed the papers, if I hadn't heard her call me an ungrateful old woman, I might have believed it. "So you stole my money out of fear?" I asked quietly. Michael flinched. "I didn't steal anything. I moved it to protect it, to make sure it was safe for your care. But I see now how that looked, how that felt from your perspective. And I'm sorry. I truly am." "Then give it back." "We will," Michael said quickly. "Tomorrow, after the hearing, if you drop the case, I'll transfer every penny back to your account. And the house? We'll tear up the deed transfer. We'll void the power of attorney. Everything goes back to the way it was." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm, familiar. The same hand I'd held when he'd crossed the street as a child, when he'd graduated college, when his father had died. "Mom, we're family. This fighting, these lawyers, it's tearing us apart. Can't we just fix this ourselves? Can't we just forgive each other and move forward?" For a moment, just a moment, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe my son still loved me, that this had all been a terrible misunderstanding, that we could go back to the way things were. Then Jennifer spoke, and her voice had the tiniest edge to it. Think about what fighting this will do to your reputation, Eleanor. Everyone will know. Your bridge club, your church, the whole neighborhood. They'll all know that you accused your own son of elder abuse. Is that really the legacy you want to leave? There it was, the poison inside the honey. And think about the stress, Michael added, his grip on my hand tightening just slightly. At your age, with your blood pressure, Mom, this kind of stress could literally kill you. Is it worth it? Is proving a point worth your health, your life? Margaret stood up suddenly. That's enough. You're not here to reconcile. You're here to intimidate her into dropping the case. Jennifer's tears dried up instantly. Excuse me? We're trying to save our family, and you, an outsider, have the nerve to interfere? An outsider? Margaret's voice was steel. I've known Eleanor for 20 years. Where were you all that time? Oh, that's right. You only showed up when there was money to be had. Michael stood, his face flushing with anger. This is exactly the problem. Mom has been poisoned against us by people like you. Bitter old women with nothing better to do than destroy families. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, get out. My voice was louder now, stronger. You came here pretending to want peace, but what you really wanted was to scare me into submission, to make me think I'm too old, too weak, too fragile to fight for what's mine. Well, I'm not. Jennifer stood too, her pretty face twisted with rage. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, you stubborn old fool. Tomorrow, in that courtroom, we're going to prove you're incompetent. We're going to show the judge that you're too confused, too senile to manage your own affairs. And when we win, and we will win, you're going to Sunnyvale whether you like it or not. And we're going to sell this house, and there won't be a damn thing you can do about it. Jennifer, Michael said warningly, but it was too late. The mask was off. No, Michael, she needs to hear this. She thinks she's so clever, so strong. But she's just a confused old woman who can't accept that her son knows what's best for her. Tomorrow, she's going to embarrass herself in front of a judge, and then we'll have legal proof that she's incompetent. This whole stunt of hers is going to backfire spectacularly. They left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from pure, cold rage. Margaret put her arm around me. Are you okay? No, I said honestly. I'm terrified, but I'm also more certain than I've ever been. They just showed exactly who they are, and tomorrow everyone else is going to see it too. That night I barely slept. Every noise made me jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. What if Jennifer was right? What if the judge sided with them? What if I lost everything? But when dawn came, and I dressed in my best navy suit, and Margaret drove me to the courthouse, I felt something unexpected. Not confidence exactly, but determination. Whatever happened today, I would face it standing up. Fighting. I would not go quietly. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, wood-paneled and formal, with fluorescent lights that made everything feel stark and unforgiving. Linda Chen sat beside me at one table. Michael and Jennifer sat at another with their lawyer, a sharp-featured man named Gregory Walsh who looked like he ate seniors for breakfast. Judge Maria Santos entered. A woman in her 50s with intelligent eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen every trick in the book. We all rose, and my knees shook so badly I had to grip the table for support. This is a petition to revoke power of attorney and reverse recent property transfers in the matter of Eleanor Mitchell, Judge Santos began, reviewing her papers. Mr. Walsh, you're representing Michael Mitchell, the respondent. Miss Chen, you're representing the petitioner. Let's begin. Linda Chen stood, poised and professional. She outlined my case clearly. I was 72, of sound mind and body, living independently until my son had pressured me into signing documents I didn't understand. Within days, he'd transferred my house into his name and removed $43,000 from my accounts. The speed, the lack of independent legal counsel for me, the immediate financial benefits to Michael, all pointed to undue influence. Walsh countered smoothly. Your Honor, my client acted out of genuine concern for his aging mother. Mrs. Mitchell has been showing signs of cognitive decline, forgetting appointments, neglecting home maintenance, becoming increasingly isolated. The power of attorney and care arrangements were made for her protection, not for financial gain. Cognitive decline? Linda challenged. Do you have medical documentation? We have witnesses, Your Honor, people who've observed Mrs. Mitchell's deteriorating condition. Jennifer was called first. She took the stand looking demure and concerned. The perfect, devoted daughter-in-law. Under Walsh's gentle questioning, she painted a picture of a confused old woman who forgot to eat, who left the stove on, who couldn't manage her bills. It broke our hearts, Jennifer said, her voice catching. But we knew we had to act before something terrible happened. Linda Chen stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Mitchell, you testified that Eleanor was forgetting appointments. Can you give me a specific example? Well, she missed several family dinners. Did she miss them, or did she decline the invitations? Jennifer hesitated. I suppose she declined, and the stove being left on. When did you personally witness this? Michael told me about it. So you didn't actually see it yourself? No, but what about bills? You said she couldn't manage her bills. Was her electricity shut off? Her water? Did she receive late notices? Not that I know of, but so her bills were actually being paid on time? Jennifer's composure cracked slightly. She needed help whether she realized it or not. I see. One more question. When Eleanor signed the power of attorney documents, you were present, correct? Yes. Did she have her own lawyer there to explain them to her? Mr. Peterson explained everything. Mr. Peterson, who works for the real estate company that stood to earn a commission on the house sale. Objection, Walsh said quickly. Relevance? Sustained, Judge Santos said, but she was looking at Jennifer with increased scrutiny. Michael took the stand next. He was calmer than Jennifer, more practiced. He talked about his worry, his sleepless nights, his desperate desire to keep me safe. My father's last words to me were, "Take care of your mother." I was just trying to honor that promise. It was almost convincing. Almost. Linda began her cross-examination. Mr. Mitchell, you said you were concerned about your mother's safety. Yet you moved her life savings, $43,000, into a joint account. Why not leave it in her name if it was for her care? I needed to be able to access it quickly in case of emergency. But you could have done that with a limited power of attorney specifically for financial emergencies. Why transfer complete control? I thought it was simpler. Simpler for whom? Linda pulled out a document. Your Honor, this is Mr. Mitchell's search history from his computer, obtained through legal discovery. 3 weeks before moving his mother to Sunnyvale, he was researching luxury vacations to Italy. 2 weeks before, he was looking at property listings for vacation homes in the Bahamas. This is the browser history from someone deeply concerned about his mother's medical needs. Michael's face went red. I was stressed. I needed a break. A break funded by your mother's stolen money? Linda pressed. Objection, Walsh stood. Counsel is badgering the witness. I'll allow it, Judge Santos said quietly, her eyes fixed on Michael. Answer the question, Mr. Mitchell. I didn't steal anything. That money was for Mom's care, and if I wanted to use some of it to relieve my stress from caring for her, that was my right. The courtroom went silent. Even Walsh looked stunned. Michael had just admitted it, admitted that he'd taken my money for himself. You're right, Linda repeated softly. To take your mother's money without permission and spend it on yourself? Michael realized his mistake. I didn't mean that came out wrong, but Judge Santos had heard enough. Ms. Chen, call your next witness. I took the stand. My hands were shaking, but my voice was clear. I told my story simply, factually. How Michael had pressured me. How I'd signed papers I didn't understand. How I'd discovered my missing money. How they'd celebrated while I'd packed my life into boxes. Walsh tried to rattle me during cross-examination. Mrs. Mitchell, isn't it true you've been feeling overwhelmed by home maintenance? Sometimes that doesn't mean I'm incompetent. You're 72 years old, living alone. Don't you think your son was right to be concerned? Being concerned and stealing my home are two different things. Objection, Walsh snapped. Withdrawn, Linda said with a slight smile. Judge Santos leaned forward. Mrs. Mitchell, I have one question for you. Are you of sound mind? Do you understand the proceedings happening here today? I looked her directly in the eye. Yes, Your Honor. I understand perfectly. My son tried to steal my home and my money, and I'm here to stop him. Judge Santos nodded slowly. I've heard enough. It is the finding of this court that Eleanor Mitchell is of sound mind and capable of managing her own affairs. The power of attorney is hereby revoked. The deed transfer is void. Mr. Mitchell, you will return all funds removed from your mother's accounts within 48 hours or face charges for elder financial abuse. Mrs. Mitchell, your property is restored to you entirely. Furthermore, I'm issuing a permanent restraining order preventing Michael Mitchell and Jennifer Mitchell from coming within 500 feet of Eleanor Mitchell or her property without her explicit written consent. Michael shot to his feet. This is insane. She's my mother. She's also an autonomous adult whose rights you violated, Judge Santos said coldly. We're done here. I sat there, dizzy with relief. Linda Chen squeezed my hand. Margaret, watching from the gallery, was crying. I'd actually won. The aftermath of the hearing moved faster than I'd expected. Linda Chen was thorough, meticulous, relentless. Within 48 hours, every penny of my $43,000 was back in my account. My account alone, with no joint access. The deed to my house was re-recorded in my name only. The power of attorney documents were officially destroyed. But Linda wasn't done. Eleanor, you have grounds to press criminal charges for elder financial abuse, she said in her office that Wednesday. The evidence is clear. The judge's ruling gives you significant leverage. I recommend you pursue it. I hesitated. He's still my son. He's a man who tried to steal your home and your money, who called you incompetent in front of a judge, who would have left you penniless in a care facility if he'd succeeded. Linda's voice softened. I understand this is painful, but people like Michael and Jennifer don't stop unless they face real consequences. Margaret, sitting beside me, nodded. Do it, Eleanor. Think about the next old woman they might target. So I pressed charges. The district attorney's office took the case eagerly. Apparently, Judge Santos had forwarded her concerns about Michael's testimony. Elder abuse cases were notoriously hard to prosecute, but with the judge's ruling, the browser history showing Michael's planned luxury vacations, and the documented timeline of financial transfers, they had everything they needed. Michael was arrested on a Friday morning. I wasn't there. I didn't want to be. But Margaret showed me the article in the local paper. Financial advisor charged with elder abuse of own mother. There was Michael's professional headshot, the same photo he used on his business cards, now accompanying a story about theft and exploitation. His employer terminated him immediately. In the financial services industry, trust is everything. An advisor charged with stealing from his own elderly mother? Career suicide. Jennifer called me once, screaming about lawsuits and destroyed lives. I hung up and blocked her number. The criminal case moved slowly through the system, but the social consequences were immediate and devastating. Our small town had tight-knit communities, and news traveled fast. Michael and Jennifer became pariahs. Their friends stopped calling. Jennifer's book club uninvited her. The country club they'd been trying to join rejected their application. I ran into Michael's colleague, Tom, at the grocery store. He stopped me in the produce aisle, his expression uncomfortable. "Mrs. Mitchell, I just wanted to say, a lot of us at the firm had no idea. Michael always seemed so professional. If we'd known what he was doing to you—" "It's not your fault, Tom. He's filing for bankruptcy, you know, the legal fees, plus losing his job. I heard Jennifer's filing for divorce, too." I should have felt sorry for him. He was my son. I'd raised him, loved him, given him everything. But when I tried to summon sympathy, all I felt was cold emptiness. He'd tried to erase me, to pack my life into boxes and sell it for profit. Whatever love I'd had for him had died in that courtroom when he'd claimed my money was his right. 3 months after the hearing, the criminal case was resolved. Michael took a plea deal: 5 years probation, community service, restitution of legal fees, and a permanent record of elder abuse. It was less than Linda had wanted, but more than I'd expected. He would never work in finance again. His reputation was destroyed. His marriage was over. And I was free. I stood in my kitchen, in my house, making tea on a Saturday morning. The June sunlight streamed through the windows, warming the tile floor where I'd stood thousands of times before. Everything was exactly as it should be. No moving boxes. No strangers measuring walls. No sun calculating how much my life was worth. The garden was blooming. George's roses had come back beautifully this year, pink and full and fragrant. I'd planted tomatoes again, and they were already producing. My bridge club met here every Thursday now. I'd told them the whole story, and they'd rallied around me with fierce, protective love. Margaret brought me groceries every Tuesday, though I'd told her I was perfectly capable of shopping myself. "I know," she'd say, "but I like the company." Linda Chen called occasionally to check on me. "How are you doing, Eleanor?" "I'm doing well," I'd tell her, "really well." And I was. I was 72 years old, living in my own home, managing my own money, making my own choices. I had friends who cared about me for who I was, not what they could take from me. I had my dignity, my independence, my life. Michael sent 1 letter during his probation, 3 pages of justifications and half apologies that never quite took responsibility. I read it once, then burned it in my fireplace. I didn't need his apologies. I didn't need closure from him. I'd already found it on my own. The restraining order remained in effect. Michael wasn't allowed near me or my property. Occasionally, I'd hear news through the town gossip network. He was working as a cashier at a big box store. He'd moved into a small apartment. Jennifer had taken him for everything in the divorce. I felt nothing when I heard these updates. Not satisfaction, not pity, not grief. Just nothing. The woman who'd loved him, who'd raised him, who'd wanted desperately to believe in him, she was gone. I was someone different now. Someone stronger. Someone who knew her own worth. One evening, sitting on my porch with a glass of wine and watching the sunset paint the sky pink and gold, Margaret asked me the question I'd been asking myself. "Do you ever regret it? Fighting him instead of just letting it go?" I thought about it carefully. "No," I said finally. Even if I'd lost everything fighting, the house, the money, all of it, I wouldn't regret it. Because I would have lost it on my own terms, fighting for what was right. Not because I was too scared or too tired or too old to stand up for myself. Margaret nodded, understanding. "You saved yourself." "I did," I agreed. And that's something no one can ever take away from me. A year after the trial, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined, not just returned to normal, better than normal. I'd joined a seniors fitness class at the community center. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I'd spend an hour exercising with women who'd become dear friends. Then we'd go for coffee at the diner across the street. "You're glowing," Rose told me one morning. "You look 10 years younger." "I feel 10 years younger," I admitted. It was true. Free of Michael's betrayal and the fear of losing everything, I felt lighter, stronger, more myself. I'd expanded my library volunteering to 3 days a week. I helped with children's reading programs and taught computer skills to other seniors. The head librarian, Thomas, a 75-year-old widower, had become a good friend. We'd have dinner occasionally, sharing meals and comfortable conversation. My house had become a gathering place. Margaret, Patricia, Nancy, Rose, they filled my home with laughter and friendship every week. The house Michael had tried to sell was alive again. I'd even started traveling. Small trips, the coast with Margaret, Portland with Rose, San Francisco with Patricia. "After watching you fight for your home," Patricia told me, "I realized I don't want to give up my independence either." The garden had never looked better. I'd added raised beds, growing tomatoes, peppers, herbs, more than I could use, so I shared with friends and the food bank. George's roses covered the fence, their pink blooms reminding me daily that I'd won. Meanwhile, Michael and Jennifer's lives had crumbled. Jennifer had remarried quickly, but her new husband left after 6 months when he learned about her past. Last I heard, she was working as a dental receptionist, living in a studio apartment, drowning in debt. Michael's situation was worse. The elder abuse conviction made him unemployable in any professional capacity. He'd cycled through retail jobs, food service, delivery driving. Tom mentioned seeing him at a warehouse store. Defeated, 20 pounds heavier, just broken. I felt nothing hearing these updates. No satisfaction, no pity, no guilt. They'd chosen their path. I'd simply refused to be their victim. Linda Chen called on the trial's anniversary. "Your case has become legendary in elder law. 3 other seniors contacted me after reading your story. You gave them courage." I sat in my garden that evening, surrounded by roses and vegetables, my deed safely in my name, my bank account untouched. I was 73 years old. I was happy. I was free. And I had saved myself, so that's my story. What did I learn? That age doesn't mean helplessness. That family isn't defined by blood, but by respect and love. That fighting for yourself, even when it's painful, even when it's your own child you're fighting against, isn't selfish. It's survival. If someone is taking your power, your money, your choices, fight back. Get help. Don't go quietly. I was 72 when my son tried to erase me. I'm 73 now, and I've never felt more alive. What would you do in my situation? Would you have signed those papers? Would you have fought back? Leave a comment below. Share your story. Subscribe if this resonated with you. And remember, you're never too old to stand up for yourself. Thank you for listening.